Hello and welcome to the Cult Products podcast. I'm Phill Keaney-Bolland. Just kidding, I'm not really. I'm Alex. I'm the producer usually on behind the scenes of the Cult Products podcast. But this week we're changing things up a little bit, and I'm going to be doing my best Emily Maitlis impression and interviewing Phill and Adam. I've been working with the guys for I don't know, 4 years now, I think. 4 years, I'd say. And yeah, been on a wild journey with the two of them. But before we get into that, I just want to introduce Phill and Adam. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
This is a bit of a funny situation, I'd say. Bit of a change up to usual. How do you feel about me interviewing you both today?
Are we getting a grilling? How Emily Maitlis is this going to be?
I'm nervous. That was a very strong intro. I'm worried now we're going to get be put under the microscope a lot, but ready for it.
We can both sweat. We can.
Yeah.
I've never been in a helicopter. I can sweat, and I've never been to Pizza Express and Woking.
Yeah.
Good to know. Not that you know of anyway.
Prince Andrew.
Yeah, Prince Andrew. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think let's just get into it. Happy with me to get cracking?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Let's go.
So I guess like for everybody who's listened on the regular to the Cult Products podcast, and for new listeners, it'd be good to know like how you guys met. Where did it all begin? What was that moment like when you both saw each other for the first time on the date of?
On the date, well, yeah. Did we know it was such a momentous?
We don't know dates. Did we know it was? Well, maybe on the first day we went into the office, but like because we were wearing exactly the same clothes, so maybe that was a sign of things to come.
That is true. Yes, although that wasn't the first time that we met because I was working at the chemistry group, which was a startup where I was running marketing, and we needed to hire a designer, and I wrote the job description that would win the heart of my future collaborator.
It really did.
And got sent this guy's portfolio. Thought this is much better than everyone else's portfolio. Like a lot better. Not necessarily just because the other people weren't very good, but just because Adam is really, really good at designing things. In fact, I don't even think we interviewed anyone else. I think Adam was the only person.
I was going to say
I wasn't under that impression.
I was really.
Yeah. Like, we've got about we've interviewed so many people for this role.
Yeah, you have to put your finger out, mate. This is very competitive. Role.
You have to reduce that salary. Yeah.
Nobody else applied, actually.
What?
Just you.
Honestly, if you want advice about writing job descriptions, this is your guy, because it was like I read it and I was like, this sounds incredible. It was like everything. It was like the best job description I've ever read. Honestly, it was. It was so good. It was. It just had everything in it. It was like everything I was looking for, which is just autonomy, like fun. It just sounded like it did sound like as Phill said, the time the best place to work.
So expectation versus reality.
We'll go into that.
So Phill, did you actually interview Adam?
He's a great marketeer, so he did a very good job of doing that. Yes, he did. In fact, I remember it very well. Because we did it online, didn't we? First, because I was about to go to Croatia or something. I was literally about to get on a flight, and I was at my mum's house, and we did it virtually, and it was really good. But I think it was right.
So your first meeting was actually virtual, and a lot of our work now is all virtual. So that's kind of a sign of things might have been a sign of things to come. That's so funny, because that would have been way pre-COVID, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, chemistry was pretty forward thinking in that sense. Slash, a lot of people didn't want to come into the office, I guess. So they the office was really fun, but there was I think a lot of the senior people didn't live in London, and they were like, oh, don't want to come in on a Friday, so let's figure out how to do virtual meetings. And that was kind of cascaded down. In lots of ways, chemistry was very ahead of its time, I think. I don't think we met in person until you started work.
No, I think
you were on holiday, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I got invited to like some bowling thing or something. I think that was the first time I met people, maybe. But as you do. But yes, the first time don't think you were there, but I think the first time we actually met was when we turned up in exactly the same outfit, which was everyone had a right old laugh about. So then that was the start of the chapter. Yeah,
and the rest is history. That's the end. That's the end of the story.
What more can I say?
I don't think we dress that similarly. Now.
We don't.
Like, I don't.
I know we don't.
I think the chances of us wearing the same clothes now are pretty remote. I would say.
Very.
But on that day, it was literally, I think like Doc Martens, black skinny jeans, and like a red button-up
burgundy shirt, which I think is quite an obscure choice but so that's the probability of that is quite low. But so yeah. But anyway, I think it was a great place to have met and worked, and I think it was pretty quickly early on we kind of worked out that like there was something quite like kind of special in terms of the way that we kind of worked together. I think I hadn't really worked with someone that kind of pushed me so much and like opened my mind up to different things, and I think we complemented each other quite well from an early start. I think it was very different to anything I'd experienced working with other partners at like marketing companies or other startups. So yeah, I think it was quite an instant hit.
So was it both of you? It was your first foray into working at a startup?
No, I'd worked at quite a few. Yeah, I'd come from like Groupon and worked at startups in Australia and done some other stuff. And but it was the first time I think I felt like we really had a bit of a mission, and like we were, and I think we will go into the organisation we were working at, but it was a great place to really like learn our craft really, because it was bonkers in all the great ways and all the negative ways. But I think for Phill and I, we had a lot of like autonomy on like stuff that we were doing, and we saw the whole kind of operational side of business and how like, and we'll talk about how that really impacted on kind of Yaya, but it was great. It was a wild roller coaster, but it was great doing it with Phill and together, and we got the opportunity to do loads of crazy, interesting stuff together.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it was pretty soon after Adam started that I think we were both still in the office at like 11 o'clock at night, fiddling around with some like PDF brochure or something, and I think that was one of the first. What I realized doing that was that Adam really like cared about what we were doing as much as I did. He was like, "No, I'll just stay and we'll just do this. We'll just get it finished, and get it to a level where it's really, really good." Which we've managed to keep the practice of working on stuff really late into the night going ever since.
Yeah.
Love those late nights.
Yes.
Can't get enough.
I think a similar work ethic is really important, like for a business partner or someone that you have to be aligned and want to try and always kind of exceed expectations and push yourself. And I think that it felt like for the first time I was really being like pushed, and in a way that like felt at sometimes a little bit uncomfortable, but in like the most kind of positive way, if that makes sense. It was like, and I think we were both kind of on that journey together, which was really cool.
So you're at chemistry for X amount of months, years. I don't know how
Felt
long.
like a lifetime.
Felt like a lifetime. But then you both went off and did your own thing for a bit, right? But you stayed in contact and mates during that.
The thing with chemistry was like none of us really knew what we were doing. And so it was really good to have somebody alongside me who was like, yeah, I kind of get that we don't really know what we're doing, but like, let's try and figure it out together. And actually, I think, it's also worth saying we had a really great group of people that were in that marketing team around us. I think for me and Adam, one of the things that was happening while I worked there is there was a lot of pressure, and I really tried to protect Adam and the rest of the team from that pressure as much as possible, and that really was quite difficult and very stressful. And there was a specific memory that I think was quite pivotal when it became apparent to Adam and the rest of the team that pressure existed, and that from that point on, Adam became more than just a sort of person that I was working with, but he was the person that we actually had this office that was like a disused office next door to where we were. So somebody had moved out, and we used to just go in there and we used to just chat through, what the hell's going on and how are we going to navigate our way through this. And, as well as doing the work together, Adam was actually really supportive, and it became really quite weird because, technically I was Adam's manager and supposed to do things like performance reviews and all that kind of stuff. It started to just not really feel like that kind of relationship quite quickly, and so then we've got this, and then the third thing I suppose is we would go to gigs together and hang out outside of Monday to Friday stuff. So you've then got this relationship where you're like, we're doing some really cool work together, and we did some really cool things when we were at chemistry, a lot around kind of branding and events and things that I think were really interesting. Then you've got we're in this together and emotional support side of things, and then you've also got the fact that we actually like each other and we're friends. So that actually all happened pretty quickly. The point where we were working with different people who'd come into the business as marketing people, all of whom were really good, and who we kept working with and all that kind of stuff. But I remember in my head just feeling that this pressure was getting like more and more intense and building up, and then saying to Adam, "Come on, let's just go for a walk. I need to talk to you about something." We went out to this little patch of grass because we were in literally above Oxford Circus, and they have these little sort of fenced off bits where some of the senior people used to occasionally just go to sleep in the middle of the day. Less said about that, probably the better. So we walked around that, and I just sort of articulated, I think that the people who are coming in from agencies, I think we're at that level. We could be going into other businesses and saying, we'll help you with these problems, just like they are. I can't see myself staying with all the kind of chaos and pressure, and as I said, the job that I was being asked to do, like I didn't really know at that point how to do it and how to do it really well, so it just sort of felt quite overwhelming. and basically said, look, I think we should start our own agency, and I think that the two of us working together is really strong. I think we can do all the things that we need to do really successfully. And then I think, Adam, you said, well, actually, mate, this is something that I've always wanted to do, and really like to do it together. And then I left, and then we didn't do anything about it for a few years. We tried other things. I mean, we tried to start a charity.
That's right. Yeah,
we did indeed.
Which was good, because that was another chance to work together and figure out how we could actually function starting our own thing.
So yeah, you were at chemistry. It was obviously like super pressurized, highly stressed, late nights, but you had a really good emotional support network. You were with like-minded people. You both had that like almost like a eureka moment, years before you actually like took the plunge to start your own thing. That I suppose, in the like downtime when you were, not working directly with each other, you were working at other places on other things, you were still mates and going to gigs together. What was the tipping point then? Like, we've got to do this now or never, as you said, Phill. Like, what was that moment, and what inspired it, having worked at startups?
Well, I think it became quite clear that, so we started this charity Gaggle in the gap between while I was at Newton, Adam was still at chemistry before we started Yaya, and that we got some traction with that initially. It was quite fun to work on, but I think largely because we just didn't really have the time, and we hadn't like fully committed to it, and we weren't really financially in a position to just pack our jobs and then kind of go full time on it at any point during that. So that sort of wound down, but it wound down in a way that I was like, I do still really think that I want to work with Adam. And even that idea, that was with Ben, who's been on the podcast before. Ben and I started talking about starting a charity, and I think I said to Ben, well, actually, I've already said I'm going to start business with Adam, so we need to bring him in on this, and I think he'll be really, really useful to it. So that's how it kind of evolved, and then we came out the other side of that. The tipping point, honestly, was that we had the opportunity to get a client that we were very we had a good relationship with, and it would cover like about 50% of the money that we needed to live, and I think that was good enough for us to then take a punt on getting the other 50% through sales. So it was literally a case of me just picking up the phone, and I can remember vividly having this conversation with Adam and saying, we talked about this, we've been talking about it. Are you actually serious about this? Like, is this just pub talk, or are we actually going to go and do this? Because if we are, we're never going to have a better chance than we have right now. I'm pretty confident we can get a contract here for a retainer, and we'll never have a better chance than now. And the other thing I think was like timing wise. So I think, Adam, you had
I was freelancing at that.
Just got married, but we were both still like renting, and I was living in Oxfordshire and stuff. It was like in terms of like stage of life, it was kind of like, well, we've got like, we don't have loads and loads of commitments that we're putting at risk by taking a punt on what we're doing with our careers. And it could have gone either way. If Adam had said no at that point, I'm not sure in like another 5 years we would have revisited it. I think we might have just moved on.
Yeah. I also think, there's risk in everything. And I think kind of, I'd worked in the startup world for quite a while by then, and been through a kind of couple of like redundancies and things like that. There's never any certainty in anything, and I think when you've had those experiences, it does make you like feel like, well, you know, what you got to lose. This is like such a great opportunity. The worst that can happen is that it doesn't work out and I'm back on the job market. But you know, you can start a job one day and then be made redundant like a year later because the startup hasn't worked. So you know, it was an absolute no-brainer for me, and we were very, very lucky to have this kind of platform to build the business off, and you know, I feel very grateful for having that opportunity through like the hard work that Phill put into to do that, and the client itself, because they were brilliant and kind of helped the kind of foundations of what we call Yaya today. But yeah, it was pretty much like an easy decision, really.
And so, had you thought, like specifically, we talk, you know, you guys talk a lot on the Cult Products podcast about, you know, having your value proposition and editing it and, you know, changing it up. How like solid were you with your value proposition at that stage? Also, what were you called when you first started? I think our listeners would be keen to know.
Well, being a design agency who, funny enough, do quite a lot of naming as part of our process, we were terrible at naming our own business, and I say terrible. It was just very difficult, but we had to do it legally because you know we had to get stuff. We had to register a limited company, and we needed to get paid and get invoices. And we just couldn't think of anything. Well, we couldn't think of anything. We had some terrible ones. I think we actually even like outsourced I wouldn't say it's an agency. What was that, Phill? It was like a website that can just generates loads of names for you. And what was the one? Adam and Philosophy. Adam and Phil's Philosophy or something. It was terrible.
It was terrible. It was one of those sites where you put a brief up and then loads and loads of people can try and answer the brief, and then when you sort of pick a winner and then you pay the winner the money for the idea. And yeah, a lot of Adam's philosophy, but Phill with two L's was one of the ones that.
Wow.
Although, you know, I mean, 6 years down the line and we actually remember it, so maybe we should have gone with that. But no, we went for, we did go for something probably like, you know, equally bad, but we thought it was funny at the time, which is Adam and Phil's Very Good Design Company. Or really good design company.
Just good. It was just good. We didn't.
It wasn't even really good.
Oh. Well, we didn't want to be too.
We didn't.
Too arrogant.
Yeah. See, we had humble beginnings, Alex. Like we wanted to, you know, that was part of our value prop was, you know, authenticity. You know, that was very important to us. So we didn't want to. We were like we did work where we should put really good in, but we decided to take it out to see Adam and Phil's Good Design Company. Which everyone hated.
I've just thought
it was really long and we couldn't get it on the invoices, so it was practically terrible idea.
Well, I just thought of a name that you might have had. You know, if they were like blending up the names, you could have had like FAM, with like your Phill and Adam blended with a PHAM. What do you think? How's that name? How's that for naming?
Really? Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's great.
I think it's great.
Yeah, FAM's the name of. I want to plug the local greengrocer. It's called FAM.
Oh, well, it's taken then.
I wouldn't want to go head to head with them because.
Damn it!
But no.
Yeah.
But we did. In terms of, to answer your question, Alex, and the value proposition, yes, it was like, I mean, to be quite honest and transparent, at the start of running a business, and you know, we've been talking to the guys that we kind of mentor and chat to about this, because there's this kind of idea around like, you know, you obviously want like the great projects from the go, right? You know, that's like your idea. The reality is like, you know, you're starting off, you've got to just kind of do what you can really to kind of keep afloat, keep the business going, and just don't feel too, I guess, put down that you're not working on these kind of big projects that you envisioned from the get-go? Because, you know, if you are brilliant, you can do that, fantastic. But it just doesn't always really work out like that. So, you know, we did have to like kind of scrap around a little bit and get our kind of idea of like what we kind of wanted to do. We had a clear vision in our head, like the type of work we wanted to do. We were very clear on that. We didn't want to go down the marketing route. We wanted to stay very much around brand and early stage products. So I think we've always been aligned on that kind of idea. But at the start, you know, it took us kind of, I'd say, quite a while to get to a place where we actually started to kind of work on those kind of projects that we wanted to work on and get that type of work. And I just think that is a reality of starting up. And, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should say that we owe a massive amount to the people who used to employ us, both chemistry. Adam was still at chemistry when we started the business, and the Roger and the team there, they didn't want to lose Adam, so we transferred that relationship into, they became a client. And for me, Newton were like super supportive in terms of like giving us the opportunity to do all of this. And I'll be really grateful to. There's a few specific people who helped us actually shape what that arrangement looked like, but also that was effectively our value proposition at the start, was the things that chemistry wanted to buy and the things that Newton wanted to buy. And they covered a range of different things, some of them in the marketing space, some of them in product design space, some of them in the more kind of like digital website space, and so that that was our value proposition essentially. And it was totally validated because we had two customers who were paying for it. And then we went down to Margate and did a sort of workshop session where we actually thought about what our target value proposition would be and what we were trying to work towards, which funnily enough at the time it was largely around like design sprint workshops and product prototyping and things like that. And then at the outset we had a website that literally just said on it, we build apps, websites and products or something. That was it. That was like the headline, because we just wanted something that was like, let's not mince our words, let's not put no fluff on this. Like, if you want to buy these things, these are the three things that we do. I didn't even mention brand. I think it was very just heavily digital focused. And then we just tried to get towards that being the reality by attracting new clients over time and just refining what we do. But as the advantage you have as a service business is you can basically start it and start making money as long as you can get people to pay you for your time and your effort and your energy. And we took advantage of that, and we sold things that we felt comfortable delivering and could do well to people who wanted to buy them, whatever they happened to be. And there were some things in there that were quite far away from what we were aiming for. But you need to eat, like you need to pay your rent.
Yeah.
You need to like not be precious about the things that you're doing.
Yeah, I think sometimes we were very aware of those kind of projects that kind of drifted a little bit further away from like the core kind of proposition that we defined. But I think we were always aware of that and took it like just on the chin as just part of the growing process. And looking back, it's kind of, I look back and smile at those kind of projects because lucky enough, like Phill and I think that's kind of one of the things that I love working with Phill, is that we just kind of, we feel like we can just throw ourselves into something and we'll figure it out and we'll do a good job of it. And we have got experience in a lot of things, which is great. And lucky enough to have had a very varied career, so we can do a lot of things to a certain degree. But I feel like I do look back on those times and think they were the forming of something, and it was good to experience it, even if it wasn't exactly on the nose of the type of work we really were trying to kind of go for.
That's a good moment to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll pick up right where we left off. So in those first kind of couple of years of Yaya or Adam and Phil's good design agency, what were the kind of milestone points where you sort of thought we should, like, looking back on it, that you probably would have done slightly differently, let's say?
I think actually one of the milestones might have been, Phill, when we actually created Yaya. Like that actually felt like, because I think, so I'll give you a little backstory on the name, because we haven't done, obviously, as you say, we kind of deliberated on that a lot. It's actually my kind of wife's maiden name, and it's derived from, she's got Nigerian heritage. And I think, Phill, you were very keen on kind of, like, we kind of dabbled around, like we could just call it Yaya. And I was a little bit like, well, it's kind of like signs me up to, I mean, it's my wife, so I shouldn't really say that, but it's, but we underlined about it, but it felt right because we were wanting, a lot of our proposition was around sprints, as Phill says. It was about speed of delivery. It was about like kind of solving problems in a kind of short space of time. And Yaya felt like nice and quick, concise, had some nice kind of like meanings around it. And then as soon as I think we kind of got that, the logo, and like kind of had the brand, it just started to kind of feel like something, like something significant, something different, and something we could really get behind. I mean, I'm a brand person, so I say that's the power of brand. That's what it does.
There you go. Yeah.
And I think, going out, and obviously we intentionally wanted to look different. We wanted to kind of express ourselves in a different way. Hence why everyone was going very black and mono, and we were like pink. No one's doing it. We want to, and we felt again like, to our kind of the people who we are. We're not. It kind of represented us in a lot better way. So I think once we kind of got that together, it started to really feel like, hey, this is something. It's all kind of starting to click into place. But that took a bit of time. That was still like half a year down the road, I'd say, until we started to really start to get those pieces together. And I'd say and that's what I mean. It just these things just don't happen overnight. It's not like you start a business, bang, you know what you're doing. Like we were constantly like kind of just ebbing and flowing, like working our way to well, we're still doing it today, really. But you know what I mean. It was just it just started to feel a bit more real at that point.
I think there's lots of things that we learned during that period of time when we first started. I think one of the things that it stands out as just a really sort of tactical thing is that when we were talking to people about projects, we learned that if somebody says to you, how much is it going to cost me to build this app, and your response is probably, I don't know, like some six-figure amount, people go, that seems like a lot of money. And I would like, okay, now we're sort of thinking about this whole thing differently. And I think that that phrase, like, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time.
I've never heard that phrase. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase.
How do you eat elephant one bite at a time? Like, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that famous phrase.
The famous phrase. So the reality is that the number that you've got to is that's the amount that it's going to cost. But actually, like you kind of need to break things up so that they're more digestible and that you can eat them one piece at a time. And we had a couple of proposals where we did that, and the response was like, yeah, that's loads of money. We're like slightly wary about doing it. And then we changed our approach and we said, well, what if we say, look, we're actually just going to lay the groundwork for this, and we're going to sort of validate it and do the business case first as a piece of work, and that's not going to cost as much, and there's much less risk attached to it. And then you do that, and then you kind of build up that confidence more gradually to get to a point where somebody's like, yeah, I trust you. that number seems reasonable. I can see what value is attached to delivering this project, all of that kind of stuff. And you don't get that like shock to the system that, so that, that was one thing that I think stands out as like, we probably had a couple of projects that actually we could have turned into bigger things if we had approached them in a slightly different way. The biggest milestone would have probably been the point that you joined, Alex. I think that was that felt like a
pick up Alex.
That felt like the end of sort of chapter 1 and into chapter 2, and that was a real huge thing that we deliberated over a lot, and it felt really scary at the time to hire anybody and suddenly have these like fixed amounts of money that you have to pay people every month, and that sort of loss. That was the point where it went from being something that felt quite, okay, well, if it all doesn't work out, we can sort of retreat into our shell very, very quickly, to no, actually, like, now you're asking other people to trust you and to come on this journey with you, and it like had a huge impact on how I felt about the business in like positive and like slightly stressful ways. But it was absolutely the right thing to do, and it was, it's been the foundation of what we've been able to do since. Is, you move from a model where you're primarily working with freelancers who aren't massively invested in what you're doing, into like having a proper team of people who are really committed to something, and that was absolutely the right thing to do. It's still probably the like biggest moment of change that we had as a business, if I think about like a before and after, how it all felt.
100%.
We should probably also note that it was during the pandemic that all this,
I was gonna say,
like, massive changes were happening, so that must have been a bit like shaky, like making all these big, decisions and scary things. If you're now like employing people, you've got your name, you've got everything's becoming a thing, and it's all happening while the world's mad.
I mean, I think we would like turn to each other, like, when COVID started to really kind of, what that was actually going to entail, and was like, well, it's been a great 6 months for the business, because it's all about to go to pot, and thankfully and luckily, we actually managed to survive and do really and do way better than we expected through that period. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely like when we brought you guys on board at that point, Alex and Rachel, it was like the biggest milestone, the biggest kind of change. It was like just kind of shifting up again. Like, for context, Phill and we were like, when we first started, our office was the basement of a hotel that had no windows. I say office, it was just the only place we could work for free in London, and had good internet, which is a story in itself. But then, then we kind of graduated up to a little kind of box in Hoxton. And that's when the guys came up, and since then we've had 2 other offices that have grown and expanded. But yeah, I think at that point, it was COVID time, bringing you guys on board. It was the best decision we made, and it was like it did start to feel really significantly different in terms of the business itself, and like our, and what we were kind of becoming.
Yeah, I think it's massive credit to businesses and startups that do manage to go along for the journey no matter what's going on in the world. Like, it's pretty tenacious to then be like, right, we're gonna get some extra people on board while the world's like this. There's always going to be something happening in the economy and on the planet, but people are still like have that want and like assistance. Then things can
100%. And credit to like the people that we worked with at the time for like actually doing the work and executing, because it was a frightening time, and everyone kind of could have just grounded to a halt and not done any project stuff. So yeah, it was a strange times.
Well, we did also. So the way that we got through pandemic was because we were just very anxious before pandemic. Before obviously we had any idea that it was coming, about everything failing, and that insecurity meant that we had money in the bank when we got to COVID. So we didn't take, you can start a business, you can start a services business, and you can take the money out of the bank every month, drain it completely, and some months you make more and some you make less. We didn't do that. We just said, what do we actually need to live? Both took a pay cut from the jobs that we were doing, and that enabled us to build up a cash reserve, which meant that at the start of the pandemic we had a buffer. And the conversation we had was, well, if we don't sell or deliver any work now for, I think, 6 months, we'll run out of money. But if that happens, the world has ended. It's just like everyone is going to be in a absolutely terrible state. So it's going to be hard, but we're actually not in a bad position. And I would say that, I think that is a better place to be than if you just drain the bank account every month.
Yeah.
We also hired two people who we'd worked with for probably about 6 months before we had that conversation. It was like long enough really to know that there wasn't much risk in bringing those people in, because you were really just confirming what was already happening. So it felt more secure for that reason. The reason, it's obviously a risk is because you don't know what's going to happen with your sales pipeline after that point. And that, we mitigated that by saying, we don't know what's going to happen with our sales pipeline after this point. You need to know that if things get difficult, we can't make any promises that we don't feel we can keep. This is all the stuff that we know, that it all. You can make an informed decision about whether this feels right for you and whether you want to join, and let us know. And fortunately, the growth trajectory that we were on was pretty consistent for the first few years. We managed to double our revenue every year. And now when I look back on those things, I think we really started to make mistakes once we got into about year 4. Right? For the first few years, were actually like a bit easier. It was kind of like the opening levels on a video game, and then the stakes got higher, and it was like the decisions got harder. And you never really know what you're doing. Like, we haven't actually done any of this stuff before. We're just trying to react to things that are happening and learn on the fly how to grow and run a business. And when you do have that kind of growth trajectory, that's a real steep learning curve to try and get your head around. And a pandemic actually was, from a business perspective, was actually quite a beneficial thing, because there was actually a lot of work around. People wanted to digitize a lot of their product offering, so product design exploded. People were suddenly like, well, we're all working remotely anyway, so we haven't really got any qualms about working with people who aren't in the same country as where we are. And we were able to grow in North America, and then after pandemic, people just had these reserves of cash that they wanted to spend because they'd been quite conservative with their budget. You would probably say, if you were a massive agency used to huge fees, for us, being smaller, the budgets were totally fine. Then it got really hard because the budgets then kind of dried up again. The economy got really hard. The impact of all the money that had been kind of loaned out during COVID started to hit, and suddenly there was, I guess, that Brexit impact, and we were in and out of recession and all of those kinds of things. So like as it was getting more difficult because of the scale of the business, it was also getting more difficult because of the climate of the business. And where you might make mistakes and things in the early days, and the knock-on effect isn't as big when you're a bigger business. Then you start to have like more of an impact when you start to get things wrong, and you like inevitably are going to get things wrong because nobody gets everything right 100% of the time. So when you ask that question about what would we change in the early days, there isn't a huge amount. There are in the sort of latter stages things that, with the benefit of hindsight, you look back on, you think, oh, what the hell were we doing there? Like getting a bigger office than we needed. But then you also look at that sort of decision and you're like, well, every time we got an office, we probably got a bigger office than we needed, and it was the right decision the first couple of times. It's only a bad decision because we overestimated how many people would be sitting in chairs in that room. But every other time we underestimated it. So
exactly, and we couldn't control the economy at the time. But
it's been a very tumultuous few years. So,
but the thing is, I think like I'm a massive advocate of people obviously setting up their own businesses, and I really want to push for people to become entrepreneurs and do their own thing. And with all like that context around like what was going on in terms of Brexit, COVID, all these things, there's loads and loads of reasons to not start a business. Like there's way more reasons to not start a business than start a business. And they do make it very difficult to do it in this country. But, I really want to like be an advocate for people to make that kind of leap of faith, because it's the best thing that I've personally ever done. And I think, Phill would say the same thing. And we've learned and got so much from it. As hard as it's been in certain times. But, we always said to ourselves when we started Yaya that like, if you want to, if you're motivated by money and want to be rich, like starting a business isn't really the thing for you. Like we were really motivated by having something that we felt really proud of, building something that a place that we'd love to work in ourselves. And creating a culture that we felt was inclusive and warm and fun, and like gave people opportunities to really excel as much as they could. Whether we achieved that or not, we can't really be the gauge of that. But that was our ambition, and our past experiences helped kind of formulate a lot of that thinking and how we would. Essentially, if we had a business ourselves, how we would want to run it and how we would like to treat the people that work within it. But I don't know where I'm going with this now, but
well, I think it's just interesting hearing, the both of you have mentioned it a few times. It's like that continuous like want to learn how to do things, no matter if you're like getting thrown into doing like all that because you've never run a business before. Like I think that's one of the things that I've liked and enjoyed about working with Yaya is that you're just you're constantly learning new things, and I think that's quite a good trait to have when you're starting out a business, like the expectation and the anticipation to just learn stuff all the time is something that you should probably have within you, because that's what it's going to be like from the get-go.
Yeah.
But I would say that you're going to learn some pretty hard lessons. The things you learn the most from are the things that are probably the hardest to go through. I don't think you learn a lot from success necessarily. That's probably a slight oversimplification, but we're like 5 and a bit. You're only 6 years in. I think we're 6 now. And I was saying to Adam just yesterday, I feel like we're kind of just we're getting to the sort of the middle now. We're kind of getting to the point where we've learned so much that we didn't know when we started the business, that we can almost now start to actually build the business, if that makes sense. And I know the business obviously exists, but there are, I would say the first few years of Yaya, we grew by just attrition and force of will. It was just like, okay, if we work really, really hard, we can get this thing to move and to grow. And I actually think you need to do that. And there is something slightly masochistic about starting a business where, you know, you're going to have to work a lot of weekends and evenings and do a lot of things that you like don't really necessarily enjoy to get it to, you know, to sort of get the boulder moving. I don't think it's possible to build like a money machine on, you know, day one of starting a business if it is ever. I think you have to scrap away. Like you have to learn those lessons, and you have to, you know, fight for clients in a different way to how you can when you're more mainstream. But then I think, you know, I was overly optimistic. I was like, you know, 5 years in, we'll be towards the end of this journey, and I realized quite recently when I spoke to people who were actually closer to the end of that journey that they were all much older than me. They'd all be doing it for a much longer period of time. And they'd had like a lot of the experiences that I'd had quite, you know, in the start of that journey, then used the lessons from those to find their feet a bit more. And so, you know, I think that's that point about continuous learning you made is, you know, firstly, I don't think you have a choice. Secondly, I think it's really important. Thirdly, like when you say continuous, like I don't think there's ever a point where you're like, okay, now I've got it, but we have got more than we had 6 years ago. And so, you know, where we are now is, I think we probably can start to think about structurally how we make the business into like a different kind of thing, like a more mainstream thing. The way that we acquire clients can change. The way that we deliver work, you know, we've learned so much about that and what works and how to do it, all of those kinds of things. And you know, it is just constant evolution. But I think we're in a slightly different phase now than we were when we very first started out.
Oh yeah, completely different, isn't it? I mean, it feels with different people. You know, we've been, you know, we've gone through a lot together as a team, and you know, I like to. It's, as you say, it's like, you know, when we look back at when me and you were working together at chemistry and, you know, riding some of those waves, then I think it was like one of the things is like really clear, like that you need someone that, you know, can take the kind of the good days and the bad days, and there's a lot of both, the highs and the lows, and go through all that stuff together. And like, I think that's the most important thing out of all of this, is like having a partner that can do that, and then getting to the other side and then being able to reflect and be like, wow, that was like incredible, and being very like kind of self-reflecting around the things that we could have done better. And, you know, we've made a lot of mistakes, but we've done some really great stuff as well. But all the time we've kind of, you know, stuck together and, you know, tried to always do the right thing and right thing for the business, but right thing like morally or for ourselves as well. But yeah, it's, you know, it can be tough at times, but I think, you know, as you say, like it is like, you know, 5 years was super ambitious as that idea of like what we wanted out of this, and it does feel like now with the learnings that we've had over the last 6 that we feel a bit more kind of matured, I guess, in a sense, like a fine wine.
I think I would also say that, you know, when obviously Adam and I started off on this journey together, but now, you know, you think about the three of us sat here, all the things that we've been through together, and, you know, how you've, Alex, come on that journey with us, and, you know, you've obviously seen the highs and lows, and you've done the continuous learning thing with us, and experienced like a huge amount. Is obviously we didn't know you at all when we started off. But now, when we think about kind of where we are and where we're going, you obviously like a real integral part of that. So I think that we talk a lot about the me and Adam starting it, but you couldn't really imagine us doing what we're doing without you being involved as well. And what I think is quite interesting is I think a lot of the time you don't see. I think it's impossible if you've never started a business to know what it feels like to actually be the founder of a business. And I think you see it when you speak to other people who are. You see that like look in their eyes, which I'm like, it's a bit like, oh yeah, you've seen things, man. That
Jaded.
You weren't
Jaded.
there.
you weren't there, man.
And yeah, and even like our partners and people struggle to do that. A lot of people who we've worked with in the business haven't necessarily seen all of the things that go into making the decisions that we've ended up having to make, and like haven't wanted to. I would say, why would you? It's really, really stressful, and you have a much easier life if you just avoid all of that kind of stuff. But you have actually been there for like the full 360 degrees of what's been going on for like quite a while now, and for whatever reason you've chosen to do that, chosen to support us.
What does that say about me?
It's a masochism, isn't it? You need to have people like that. And that's obviously why the value that we put in you is so high. So yeah, again, let's just think about that decision to go and make those hires 4 years ago, and that was a huge milestone. But massively pleased that we did make that call.
Well, I think
this is just life. This is just, as I said earlier, you could be in any kind of line of work and have like experiences where they're unpredictable. And yeah, running a business is unpredictable, unfortunately, unless you have a productized model. Service business is very volatile, but it's I feel super grateful.
Got to roll with the punches.
Roll with the punches. I feel very grateful for all the people that have supported us on the way, all the great people that have worked at Yaya, with Yaya, and very grateful to have you on board, Alex, to help.
And the Academy would like to play you off now.
Thank you. Okay. I'll accept this award. I'm just preparing for November for you.
Yeah. Before you heads off, because I do think it is actually really important, because we've spoken a lot about a lot of the things that are really hard. First thing is like everything that is worth doing is really hard, and like don't be under any illusions that like starting a business is one of the most like mentally and physically challenging things that you can do, and it's probably harder than you think it's going to be. Like it's like 100% was for me in ways that you don't expect. Putting that to one side, we've had the opportunity to work with amazing people, both some of the rooms that we get to sit in with our clients and the kind of people that they are and the things that we can learn from them, it's incredible, and that's a huge opportunity. We've been able to build a team of people that we've got to work with who have, I think, all had I would hope that they would all say, we've learned a lot from being part of this business, and move forward in our careers, and they, again, we've learned a lot from them, and they're brilliant people. We've been to countries that I never expected to go to.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yaya tour.
Yeah. we've done some really amazing work that's really added a lot of value to our clients. You can't put a price on the things that we've learned from doing this. It was absolutely, I would have learned 10% of what I've learned in the past 6 years if I'd just been working for someone else. And I've got no regrets about the decision to do any of this kind of stuff. It is a huge, it's the. I can say this because I don't.
Here's your Oscar speech.
It's the it's the thing that I've created in my life that I'm most proud of, and probably it's about 90% of my personality. The other 10% is probably the dog.
Yes.
And Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Not forgetting. The real boss.
Exactly.
The boss of Yaya.
Is my only boss. It's easy to get sucked into what's hard about running a business, and it's important to also say that it's absolutely an amazing thing to do.
On that note, I don't think we can top that. No, it's brilliant. No, I'm
brilliant.
I'm done. I mean, I obviously love it. Like that, the highs outweigh the lows, and it's the best thing that we've ever done, and I feel very proud of what we've achieved and the lessons we've learned. And Phill, I think the biggest thing is that I hope that people who have worked with us in the business have learned a lot and can reflect on it at a time being like, that was a great experience, and I learned loads, and that's kind of for me the biggest takeaway. Anywho,
lovely.
I mean, Alex.
I thought you were going to end that by saying, "And Phill, love you, man," like that. I thought that was what you were going to end on.
Phill, Alex.
Anyway,
love you both.
Love you guys. Brilliant. That's great. If you'd like to listen to us again, tune in next time to the Cult Products podcast. But until then, it's goodbye from us.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Might not be Friday, but bye.